Welcome back if you've been here before. If you are dreaming of launching a wildly profitable healthcare staffing company or even growing an existing healthcare staffing company, I want to assure you that you are in the right place. I have some exciting information to share with you today. I believe it holds the power to transform your idea into a reality or even your company into the next iteration. I have some exciting information that I'm going to share with you today, and I believe it holds the power to transform your life and your business. But before we get deeply into strategy, I want to do a quick roll call to see who's here and why you showed up today. I want to ask you if you're here because you've been thinking about starting a healthcare staffing company for quite some time and you're like, listen, Nicole, there's a lot of moving parts. I don't know how to figure this out. Or maybe you already have gathered tons of information and you're piecemealing that information together. And I know that could be frustrating. I've been there myself. And today you showed up to actually learn how to launch or grow in a methodical way. Maybe you already have a healthcare staffing company and you know that you're ready for the next level, or something is missing and you're looking for that missing piece. Or perhaps you have an entirely different business and you have seen the news about healthcare staffing and have identified this as a profitable healthcare center for your business. Or if you're just here saying, look, I am tired of trading dollars for hours. I want to own my time, I want to own my income, and I want to own my freedom, then I want you to sit tight, lean in, and prepare for the gems that I am going to share today. So before I get deep into this, I want to tell you like why this matters now. So I had a conversation last week with someone who is entering the healthcare staffing market. And in that conversation, she was sharing with me her biggest regret. And that regret was not getting started years ago. She's thought about healthcare staffing for quite some time. In fact, she's a healthcare professional, very experienced. And she said, Nicole, I've seen this industry. I've seen other people get inside of the industry and do phenomenal things. And the biggest regret is not getting started, particularly around 2018 or 2019 when she was initially thinking about it. Now, the good news is she didn't get started then, but she's getting started now. But here is what I shared with her that I think is going to be really relevant for you if you're one of those individuals or entrepreneurs who have felt that sense of regret. Um, right now, 2026 is probably one of the most important times in the history of healthcare staffing. I want to give you some data. Okay, so you know I'm not just saying this. The US healthcare staffing market is currently valued at $45.5 billion, billion with a B. And we are approaching 89.7 billion by 2033. Now, those are published projections by economists who study the industry and study the economy. And so we've coined the next decade the race to $100 billion. The demand continues. We see the nursing shortage deepening. We see other healthcare professions with continual vacancies as well. And right now, we see the same patterns that we saw pre-COVID and in some of the most promising times from a business perspective than we've ever seen. And so demand is there, and demand is not only there, demand is going up as we speak. And the supply is going down. And so there is someone that needs to be in the middle. And the good news is that is you. That is the healthcare staffing entrepreneur. That is the healthcare staffing company. And so today I'm going to talk about 2026 and share some fundamental things for this year. But before we go deeper, I want to share a little bit about my background because you might be like, Nicole, who are you? Like, why do you even get to say these things? And so I want to assure you that none of what I'm sharing today is theory. This actually comes from my own experience in the industry. My team pulled together some numbers a few years ago and said, listen, you've been doing this for 40,000 hours. And while that may seem impressive, that is not how things started. So for me, I was working as a nurse and I was excited. I loved my job as a nurse. I loved being in healthcare. But there came a season where I wanted more time, more income. I wanted freedom of options. I don't know if you've been there before. Like, I'm like, it's working, but I knew that it could be working better. During that time, I was offered a promotion by a company that I was working for. And I took the promotion specifically because one of the things that it promised was flexibility. Okay. Flexibility. And so the promise was no more bedside nursing, no more weekends, you get your own office. And I was excited. And then I go and have a conversation with my supervisor about taking advantage of the flexibility that they had promised me. And so I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. I walked into her office and I shared my heart with her and my need for this flexibility. I was the primary parent for my son at the time, and I just needed to tap in. And so I thought we had a good conversation. But there's a saying, ignorance is bliss. I left the office thinking everything's fine. I go back, I sit at my desk, and then I see her coming in and she's holding paperwork. And I can tell when she's coming in the office, I can see her whole demeanor has changed. And I'm thinking, oh no, what's happening? And so she approaches me with the paperwork. She hands it to me and begins to terminate my employment. And I was in shock. My brain was saying, this is not really happening. So I wasn't even moving because in my head, I'm thinking, is this legal? I got a promotion. I got a raise. You guys hired me for this position specifically, and I asked for what you promised me, and now I'm being escorted out of the building. So this is all true. And I went across the street to the parking lot of a local grocery store and began crying in my car. And when I say crying, it was not cute crying. I was ugly crying. And I was terribly upset because how could someone make a decision that changed my time, income, and freedom, like without even thinking about it? And at first, my anger was directed at the supervisor, but eventually I got mad at me. Because I'm like, Nicole, how did you give her that much power? And so as I'm sitting there in this car and I'm crying these ugly tears, I get this crazy idea. I actually heard the small, still voice saying, start the business. And I started crying louder because I'm like, I am a nurse. I am not an entrepreneur. This is not the time to start a business. But I started reflecting on my desire for more time, more income, and more freedom. And I decided, okay, I'm going to start the business. So now, what business? Oh, I'm going to start a business helping nurses, helping other healthcare professionals find jobs. Listen, you don't even have to say it because I know it sounds crazy. Because immediately I thought, okay, like you couldn't even keep your own job as a nurse. And so now you're going to start, like the ideal is to start a whole business and you couldn't even keep your own job, but you want to start a business helping other people find jobs. And here's the reality. It worked. So day after day, I began building this business. That supervisor coincidentally ends up calling me a few months later and becoming a client, becoming my largest client in the beginning. And so, step by step, the business was built. And then within a very short window of time, we expanded that company nationally. Why do I share that with you today? Well, I share it for many reasons, but one of them is I want you to know I've been there. It doesn't matter if you're just getting started or if you've already launched and you're ready to grow. I have been exactly where you are. And I also want you to understand that I've seen every economic cycle, have worked in every facet of healthcare staffing for the last 2 decades. And so, what I am sharing now is derived from that industry experience. So often I talk to other entrepreneurs who say, Nicole, it is so hard. It's so hard. I'm trying to figure it out. And I love this quote by Henry Ford that says, nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into small parts. So today I want to give you some small parts, some digestible nuggets to help you on your journey. And so one of the first things, or one of the most important things, is where should I launch? This is a question that doesn't get asked. And yes, this is the question that does not get asked. The assumption for most entrepreneurs is that they should launch where they live. And honestly, that could be a huge win or it could be an epic failure. And I say that because sometimes your local geography may not be the best for your personal goals. And so when you are looking at where should you launch and where you should get started, there are several factors that you should look into. And one is actually the market in your geography. So one of the things I see commonly in working with so many entrepreneurs is that they just launch without looking for data and empirical evidence to back up where they want to launch. And so sometimes the goal is great, right? They have these great revenue goals and these numbers, but if the goal is not appropriately matched with the correct geography, then sometimes the business is not working just because of the mismatch. So, what am I saying? If you have this huge revenue goal, so let's say, and huge is relative itself, but let's say you have a $10 million goal, okay? And you're like, listen, I want to take my firm to $10 million. I see the opportunity, I see the industry, I want my share in this $1 billion industry. Well, that's wonderful. But if you launch your company in a city that has 2 hospitals, what is honestly the reality of you reaching that goal? And so some entrepreneurs get started and they run into issues and they think their business model isn't working. And the truth is, their launch plan is what failed, not their launch geography is what failed, not their actual business model. So, when thinking about where to launch, you want to consider where are the vacancies. You want to consider not your goals just for year one, you want to consider your goals for the future. And sometimes it may be in your geography. Sometimes the best place to launch is actually in your best yard. But now that we have more tools, more resources, more technology than we've ever had before, and all of this artificial intelligence at our hands and our disposal, there are so many things that we couldn't do. Frankly, we couldn't do 20 years ago when I got started. We did not have the ability, we did not have the capability, we did not have the ability to even share this much across platforms as we do now. And so I say that because your goals should not necessarily be reduced, but maybe your borders should be expanded. Okay, so that is the first thing I want you thinking about. I answer this question day in and day out for entrepreneurs throughout the country. Where should I launch? Where should I launch? So, your takeaway is launch in a geography that actually has the vacancies that support your revenue goal. Okay. So, I know your next question. Well, how do I know my revenue goal? So, your revenue goal is simply how much profit your business you want to make inside of your business over a 12-month period. Okay. The revenue goal is hugely important because it helps us make informed decisions about business. Now, I would love to sit here and tell you I knew all of these things 20 years ago and it's been this linear path and I just figured it out. That is not the truth. A lot of what I did was guessing and trial and error, and I paid for that in many ways. And that is a part of the passion of why I share what I share nowadays, because I see so many entrepreneurs who can avoid those pitfalls by accessing. I see so many entrepreneurs who can actually avoid those pitfalls. And so the revenue goal actually helps you to determine where what geography you should be launching in. It tells you what activities you should be doing. Normally, I don't have time to go in it here, but we have a formula that we use to break down exactly what you should be doing on a daily basis, how many individuals you need to staff each and every day on each and every shift to reach your revenue goal so that it is more achievable and it provides your business with an actual plan, and you can have an assessment tool as well. Okay, so where should I launch is hugely important, but also your revenue goal, that is big. It's what is the target? And I want you to write it down. I don't want you to write down a number that feels impressive. I want you to write down a number that you can actually believe. Your conviction is fundamental to actually being able to achieve the goal. The real number, and that number allows you to reverse engineer the daily activity. So, your revenue goal is your barometer for growth. It helps to solidify your geography. It is a strategy for client acquisition. This one number informs so many areas of your business. It also gives you a strategy for onboarding staff. Okay, how many staff members you need per day, how many you need per month. And so this is available. Normally, we teach this inside of a larger framework that we call the real revenue formula that lets you know exactly what activities you have to do each day. The models that are working in 2026, there are 5 primary models, and I'll read them to you. And then I'll tell you which model is the most profitable in 2026. So there are 5 models, and that is travel nursing, makes up 32%. We have local tenants, which is a fast growing segment that is at 4%. We have home health and personal care, working with the aging population. Those margins are steady, and it's recession proof. My favorite model is the per diem staffing model. It is the most flexible staffing model, and it makes up 66%. And facilities are shifting now, not just using per diem staffing for a critical need or if someone calls off, they're actually identifying workforce partners because they see the supply and demand and they know that it is going to continue. Okay. And so the final one is telehealth staffing. And this is all about virtual coordinating, and it's a fairly new revenue stream, but the basis for what I share and teach and where my clients are is typically we're working through the per diem staffing model because it is the most mature and also solid. I mean, 66% of the market is a no brainer. And so I just want to say this industry is moving fast. This is the fastest movement we have seen in years. And those who win in this industry in this season, who are going to go from ideal to reality or take their staffing company from where they are now to the next level, are going to be those who work with speed and those who work with structure. So it has been an honor to be with you today. I want you to drop a comment. Let me know which stage you're in. Are you launching? Are you growing a healthcare staffing company? Or even better, what is your why? What is your why? And if you want to go deeper, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.